Leave your hope at the door, and what you're about to see is not a tragedy. It is an inevitability. I am only here to show you how it was built. So observe this specimen, Michele Ferrari, who is a creature born not for the racetrack, but for the sterile silence of the laboratory where the human soul is replaced by the cold logic of biochemistry. Today's focus is the architect of the synthetic era, fueled by the intoxicating frequency of absolute efficiency and a total disdain for the biological limits of the species. In the grand theatre of professional sport, we saw the herd cheer for strength and grit, but Ferrari realized long ago that the most renewable resource on this planet is not muscle fiber or willpower. It is the manipulability of the human bloodstream. He did not see a cyclist. He saw a thermodynamic engine with a specific power-to-weight ratio that could be optimized through the careful application of chemical catalysts and the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. Observe his plumage, which is the white lab coat and the clinical gaze of a man who understands that morality is a luxury the machine cannot afford in the pursuit of pure velocity. To the untrained eye, he was a controversial doctor, but to the naturalist, he was a master symbiote who lived in a perfect and profitable union with the world's most powerful athletes, providing them with the wings of Icarus while keeping his own hands clean. He famously stated that EPO is not dangerous as long as you do not take too much, and he compared the hormone to orange juice, claiming that 10 litres of juice would be just as lethal as his synthetic cocktails. This was the foundation of his sweet lie, a world where cheating was merely a form of advanced nutrition, and the rules were just obstacles for the less intelligent to follow in their pursuit of mediocrity. He operated in the shadows of camper vans and secluded clinics, often meeting his subjects like the high-altitude predator Lance Armstrong under the secret code name Shumi, which was a calculated nod to the mechanical speed of Formula One, because Ferrari did not believe he was coaching a sport. He believed he was fine-tuning a high-performance vehicle. They would vanish into the thin air of St. Moritz or remote mountain passes in Italy where the oxygen is scarce and the desperation of the athlete is high. Ferrari's greatest contribution to the machine was the VAM-score, which stands for Velocità Ascensionale Media, a cold mathematical formula for vertical climbing speed that reduced the struggle of the mountains to a simple ledger. He realized that to conquer the Tour de France, a human machine must be able to ascend 1,800 meters per hour, and if the natural biology of the athlete fell short, Ferrari would simply calculate the exact cubic centimeters of EPO and blood transfusions required to bridge the gap. He was not training men. He was engineering outcomes using the blood of his clients as a medium for his dark art. The logistics were as precise as a high-stakes bank heist, where over $1 million was moved from Armstrong alone through complex Swiss accounts, like the ones at the Dreyfus Bank, to ensure the alchemist was paid for his chemical blueprints, while the paper trail remained as invisible as the red cells he injected into the herd. He mastered the art of microdosing, where small amounts of forbidden substances were injected directly into the veins late at night under the cover of darkness while the world slept and the testers waited in their hotels. This allowed the levels to drop below the detection threshold before the morning sun could rise, and if the hematocrit levels rose too close to the forbidden 50% limit, he would simply instruct his specimens to use saline drips hidden under their jerseys to thin their blood just moments before the needle of the law could strike. It was a biological shell game, where the blood was thickened for the climb and thinned for the test, and Ferrari was the one holding all the cards. But every ecosystem has its rival, and even an apex predator like Ferrari faced a challenger in the form of Sandro Donati, an Italian researcher and coach who dared to look into the abyss of the chemical mafia. Donati saw the bodies of young cyclists piling up and the total corruption of the youth, but for years the machine was too powerful for a single man to dismantle. Donati was sidelined. His phones were tapped and his reputation was attacked by the very institutions that were supposed to protect the integrity of the sport, because the money Ferrari generated was far more attractive than the truth Donati was shouting from the rooftops of Rome. The machine protected its architect because the architect kept the ratings high and the sponsors happy. Ferrari's influence extended far beyond a single team or a single rider, as he consulted for an entire generation of champions who sought the magic of his needle in the high-altitude camps of the Alps. He turned the high-limit rooms of cycling into a marketplace of synthetic blood, where the price of entry was a percentage of your soul and a 10% commission on your career winnings. He understood that the human body is just a collection of systems that can be bypassed if you have the right keys, and he possessed a skeleton key made of gold and concentrated EPO. He watched his riders push their hematocrit levels so high that their blood became as thick as syrup in their veins, requiring them to wake up in the middle of the night, to walk around their hotel rooms just to keep their hearts from stopping while they slept. This was the terrifying reality of the alchemist's lab, where the pursuit of glory was a literal dance with death, overseen by a man who didn't blink at the risk of a pulmonary embolism. Think about the sheer cynicism required to treat the human body like a disposable piece of hardware, pushing it to the brink of cardiovascular collapse for the sake of a yellow jersey. Ferrari's brilliance was his absolute lack of emotion. He did not care about the glory, or the national flags, or the tears of the fans. He only cared about the data and the percentage of improvement his methods could provide to his chosen specimens. He turned the sport into a chemical arms race, where those who refused his services were left to perish in the dust of the synthetic leaders. He was the one who famously told Armstrong that he had a Ferrari engine, but he was driving it like a Fiat, and from that moment on the two became an unstoppable force of nature and deception. The architecture of their lies was built on a foundation of Swiss bank accounts and a total disregard for the health of the athletes, who were treated as nothing more than biological test subjects in a grand experiment of power and greed. Even when the law began to close in during the late 90s and early 2000s through the work of persistent investigators, Ferrari remained arrogant and untouchable, shielded by the massive wealth and influence of his global clientele. He would often mock the testers and the scientists who tried to catch him, claiming they were decades behind his own research. And in many ways he was correct, because the machine was always one step ahead. The machine had no ethics to slow it down, and no conscience to interrupt the flow of the harvest. It was only when the riders themselves began to break under the psychological weight of the secret and the threat of federal prison that the walls of the laboratory began to crumble. Men like Landis and Hamilton, who had once been loyal soldiers in Ferrari's army, began to testify, and the paper trail of millions of dollars began to surface in the hands of federal investigators, who finally looked past the yellow jersey and into the ledger of the doctor. The fall of Michele Ferrari was not a sudden explosion, but a slow rot that eventually consumed the entire foundation of professional cycling. He was stripped of his license and banned for life, but the seeds he planted in the soil of the sport continue to grow in the shadows. Today, while he serves his sentence of exile, Ferrari remains a ghost in the system, maintaining his own digital laboratory online, where he still analyzes the power outputs of the new generation of riders, proving that the machine is eternal, and the architect never truly retires. He is a reminder that in the urban ecosystem there is no predator more dangerous than the one who views humanity as a series of variables to be manipulated for profit and prestige. He did not break the rules, he simply operated in a dimension where the rules were irrelevant to the survival of the fittest machine. Look closely at the records that seem too good to be true, and ask yourself which doctor was holding the syringe, because in this world of bright lights and hard cash, the truth is often hidden in the silent chemistry of the blood and the cold math of the VAM-score. You have been watching the Urban Predator Files, and we have unmasked the architect of the thesweetlie, but the laboratory is never truly closed, and the hunt for the next chemical edge continues in the shadows of the next generation of athletes. The deception did not just ruin a sport. It broke the trust of a generation that wanted to believe in the impossible, only to find that the impossible was just a chemical formula delivered in a camper van on a remote mountain pass. Stay tuned for our next investigation into the species of greed, because even as we speak, the next generation of engineers is already recalibrating the machine for a new century of deception, where the blood is the currency and the machine is the only god that matters. Observe as the signal fades and the system enters a forced reboot on those who believe they can outrun the truth. The machine is identifying its next meal, and the hunt never truly ends. Subscribe to the inevitable and witness the final termination of the synthetic hero.